You want to be poly.
No, I want to listen to. I want to ask a question to the biggest.
It seems
One of the biggest
you got a lot of poly questions.
I think you should try it.
Well, I got a lot of poly questions. Because this is a new space that I'm just trying to learn and
But
understand.
that's what I'm saying. You got a lot of. Are you curious about it because you're interested in it?
No, it's because I know for a lot of people this is new conversation.
Poly has been around as long as Islam.
But you do know it is not a conversation that is normative.
But it's not normal for Christian folks who live their lives according to one man, one woman, wife, sanctuary. And if you think anything outside of your wife, it's infidelity. If you do anything outside of your wife or your husband, it's infidelity. If you flirt or have an emotional relationship in some capacity, it's infidelity.
How do you feel about people that feel that way?
Listen, man, I will say it again. We should be committed to waking up every single day and doing the best we can with pleasing God. We all fall short.
You know what I can say on this is Tyrese sounded more like a man of God than Kirk Franklin. And that says a lot. That shows you and that tells you the mindset that Kirk Franklin has. In my opinion, if you are interested in this topic, are hanging around people that think that this is okay, this is your mindset. This is what you're planning. This is what you're trying to do. If you're trying to figure it out, that means you're considering it. Okay? Kirk Franklin is telling on himself every day.
Call Holo Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Bahashem Raha Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. My name's Barad DeBall, coming to you from the GMS campus, Indianapolis. And to all those listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. Especially to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. You see, it says, is Kirk Franklin going poly? And you heard the video. And it's not even about Kirk Franklin or the fact of actual poly, but what the scriptures say. And so it was the way she explained, she spoke, she implied that that Kirk, even if he was considering to go poly, that it was actually evil or wicked thing. Of course, the term poly, it's fairly, I would say probably fairly new, but we know of the scriptures they speak of having multiple wives. Now, of course, it's never, maybe even in the term poly that and I haven't gone too deep into it, but there may even have, where women are having multiple husbands, and that's, of course, that's wicked. But a man, if he has the means to do so, is, according to the scriptures, if he had multiple wives, it's not an evil thing, or to even consider having multiple wives. It's not even an evil thing. Let me get this scripture really quick. See if it comes up this way for me. This is the 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 29 through 35, but I'm just going to read the first two. 29, it says, "But I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though you have none, and they that weep as though they wept not." So, of course, you would think if you were saying brethren and, wives, that it was just all brethren. But you have, even in the time that Paul was preaching, you had men who had multiple wives. Okay. Now, in order to actually, in this current present time that we're in, he makes a mention, to be a husband of one wife, right? when it comes down to this ministry, if you are a man of the Lord, wives, pretty much, whether it be one or many, you have to then take care of that woman and the woman's needs. And of course, it pulls you into the household and takes you away from the ministry. So we're not in the time of having multiple wives, but we're going to touch on some basic scriptures to show that that the men of the Lord, had multiple women. Okay. And that in the kingdom and before the kingdom to come, that there will be a time where men will then have multiple women. But again, it says, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 29, but this I say, brethren, the time is short, it remaineth, that both they that have wives be as though they have none, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as that they rejoice not. Okay, so we're in a time, at this point, because wives are actually in the line of a possession. They're possessions of their husband. And so, when you have multiple of anything, you now have to take care of those things. You have to be a protector of those things. And right now we are in the service of doing the will of the Heavenly Father, which is to preach this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And so when it goes back to the video and, the woman here's like saying that, he's considering poly, first and foremost, people in the world don't understand the truth. And so and those that are in the world don't actually have the truth. So the first thing that people gather when they think about having multiple wives is dealing with the flesh, and of course they don't want the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, to, have any type of joy in this world. Okay. But there will be a time where we're going to have possessions, abundant possessions, and that's going to include many women. But this is the word poly. I just pulled this up. Poly. And I went into polyamorous. It says involving, having, or characterized by more than one open romantic relationship at a time. Now, they say that open. Sometimes when they talk about this open relationship, you have people in the world, when they talk about open relationships, it'd be the women being able to go out and do things with other partners, whether it be men or women. And then you have men who actually go out and they do things with other women, and also men. Everybody is swapping. And so this is Babylon. This is what makes the thing so confusing, a land of confusion. And of course, Kirk Franklin, actually, I didn't see get the whole concept of everything, but just to ask a question, to want to actually understand and know, even if it is an interest of some sort, you have to hear the whole matter. You see if these things are of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai is what we first should be doing. And if it's not, then of course we ask a question, we learn about it, and then we discard it. But if it is of the Lord, and when the time, that's the other scripture I wanted to get. It just came to mind, the water, call Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23. It says, all things are lawful for me. And of course, if you understand, those that know the law, okay, everything that is lawful according to what the Lord said, okay, it says all things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All right. So having multiple women, though it's lawful, at this present moment, is it expedient with all the things that are actually going on? Having babies and increasing life in this land, with all the death, bloodshed, the troops and everything that's going on. It says, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Okay. It says, let no man seek his own, but every man's. So that's pretty much it. But let's get into a few of these scriptures. Just to show. This is the book of, just getting straight to the point. This is the book of 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 8. We're going to read KJV. And this was dealing with David, King David. And you can go into the story, but he actually, committed adultery. He took the wife of Uriah, and he slept, he slept with her, had a child, and he was confronted, about it. Okay. So and of course, by the mercy, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, he gave great mercy unto David. Right. But he says, but there was a statement that was given. All right. It says, I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives. Okay. He says, unto thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. So it's just showing you, if you wanted more, I would have given you more. Okay. He says, the legacy, let's look amplified. He says, I also gave you your master's house and put your master's wives into your care and under your protection. Right. Because, Saul, of course, he eventually, he had multiple women as well. When you read David, and then, of course, David assumed the kingdom and rulership. All right. Saul eventually, died. All right. And so, as you can see, there's many scriptures, amplified versions is showing you that he had multiple wives. But let's get to this one. This is the book of Kings dealing with Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1 through 3. The main point, we'll just read the whole thing. He says, and King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of Moabite, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. So just show you that Solomon, he had women from all, from many different nations. All right. Even the so-called white woman, as you can see, the Edomites. Right. He says, and of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, you should not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they shall turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon cleaved unto these to love. So again, he was fine in his younger age when he had them, as concubines. All right. And then and again, that's what they were supposed to be, concubines, but he made them wives. And in his old age, he fell off. Okay. But still the same. He says, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and the wives turned away his heart. So eventually his wives did turn away, the ones of the other nation, because he built idols. But again, he had these wives, and there's nowhere in the scriptures do you see that Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, when a man had multiple women, that he spoke against them for it. Right? Many of the men who had multiple women, they were actually they were well-to-do. They were kings. You even have Abraham, who had Sarah. He had great substance. And Sarah, of course, being barren, gave him Hagar, her maidservant, to lay down with. Right? They had a child, of course, and so that wasn't a uncommon thing You have Jacob, who had, he had 4 wives. Of course, started with Rachel and Leah, and then they had their handmaids. And then and through them 4, they had the 12 tribes, the 12 patriarchs, which make up the 12 tribes of Israel. This is the book of Genesis chapter 32, verse 22. He says, and he arose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 sons, and they passed over the four Jabbok. So you can see again that it was a thing within the scriptures to have multiple wives. This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 15. It says, if a man have 2 wives, so of course you see within the law, it says one beloved and another hated. It says they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated. It says, if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. So of course, the point of it is that there was a law that showed if a man had multiple women, say he had 2 wives and he had one that he loved less, right? Usually then you have this one that you love so much, and he becomes the firstborn, and you want to give everything to that son. But no, the law is putting order to it. He says to be the ones that's least liked. You would then make sure that firstborn son receives. All right. It says, but if he shall acknowledge, verse 17, but he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, but giving him double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength, and the right of the firstborn is this. So that's one thing here. So then here's the thing going into the kingdom, right? Just before these things start to happen, the Lord had he said this. Actually, let's get Isaiah 3 toward the end, because 3 goes into 4. As far as continuous, we're going to start at 24, 3 and 24. It says, it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be a stink, instead of a girding, a rent, instead of well set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. So it's just showing that, you're talking about the women, the beautifying of women. And at some point in time, all of that beautifying, we're going to be in a time where women aren't going to have access to a lot of the subsidies that they've had in the past. All right. The government is already taking away certain things that many women relied on, whether it be food stamps, whether it be stable housing, Section 8, child support laws are starting to change as well. Many women within the past several months, starting back in the beginning of the year, I think really starting like in February up until now, at this point, it's been over 300,000 women who have lost, and mainly the vast majority has been so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indian women. Of course, white women have been affected, and other nations have been affected, but mainly the talk of the town has been the so-called black women who have lost jobs, over the 300,000. Okay. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of women, they're going to be struggling in these last days. And this is what the scripture have said. Okay. A lot of them will be trodden down as a mire in the street, as the scriptures have said. A lot of them, because of their pride, that was pushed, by Esau, Edom, so-called white man. A lot of people, a lot of our women have went into that mindset of I don't need a man, or I can do bad all by myself. But it was never intended by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for a woman to be out on their own, but that for them to be the possession of a man. And in the kingdom, every woman that is born are going to be the possession of an Israelite man. Every Israelite woman, okay, is going to be possession of an Israelite man. And so so a lot of that mindset is going to change. And when they become the possession of the man, just like in the days of old, many of the women who were married, the next thing that they wanted was to have to bear seed. Okay. And it was a crazy thing, for the lack of terms. It was a crazy thing for a woman to have a husband and to have no child. That many of the women, like Sarah, and I know Elizabeth in the New Testament, was looked at as a reproach to not have a child with their husband and to be up in age. But there's going to be a time that every woman will have a husband, and every woman are going to have children, and they're going to have multiple children, and they're going to love their husbands, and they're going to be in order just as much as the man is going to be in order and in his right mind and his right state. But it's coming soon and very soon. But verse 25, it says, thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty men in the war. So many men in these last days, we're going into the Third World War. We have the sedition among men in the streets. We have these race wars, these mass shootings. You also have, these troops being sent to these cities. Pretty soon it's going to be a point where many men are going to be taken off the earth. And then you're going to see that there's going to be a lot more women looking for protection from the things that are to come upon the earth, right? And their protection, is going to mainly be from a man of the Lord, an Israelite man, and one in which the Lord is with. And so while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to get that. It's verse 26. And her gates shall lament and mourn, because when all these men die, young and old, the women will lament, they will mourn, and she, being desolate, shall sit upon the ground, just to show you that there's going to be great lamentation upon the earth soon. It says, Isaiah 4:1, it says, and in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, so that 7 is just a complete number. It could be far more, or maybe a little less, depending on what the Lord has provided for that particular man. But it says, in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away thy reproach. See, they want to be under the house of an Israelite, a man of the Lord, because that's where the protection is going to be. All right. And they're going to want their reproach taken away. So let's show this. More precious than. So, and this is what the Lord has said. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 12. He says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the gold wedge of Ophir. Now, the wedge of Ophir, fine gold, is something that's very precious and valuable. All right. So he's going to make an Israelite man, a man of the Lord, is going to be more precious than fine gold. All right. And why will they be precious? Because these will be the ones that are keeping the laws. the statutes, commandments, and the faith of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai in that time. These will be the same men that will that the Lord is going to feed. But before I get that, let me get this here. So it says, verse 12, it says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even the gold wedge of Ophir. All right. So then he says, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 32, verse, we're going to read 1. 32, verse 1, the point is in 2. He says, behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, that's Yahweh Shai, and the princes and the prince shall rule in judgment. Yahweh Shai is going to rule when he returns. He says, and a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind. All right, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in the weary land. So a man is going to be a hiding place. He's going to be a covering. All right, because again, the Lord is going to be dealing with the men, and of course, as time go on, it's going to be made known who the Lord is dealing with. Right now, with all the chaos, the men of the Lord are mixed in amongst everything, and he made it to be that way. A lot of people's eyes are blinded to who those men really are, but eventually it'll be made known who is chosen. All right. It says, and the eyes of them that see shall not be dimmed, and the ears of them that hear shall hearken. So at that point, people are going to see, they're going to hear, and they're going to understand that who the Lord has always been dealing with. So this is why, starting with the head apostles and elders of Great Millstone, those that teach likewise doctrines, the bishops, the elders, we're in that spirit of, they'll wait and see. If we're not those men, then it'll be made known, in the end. But somebody has to play this part. So we got this here. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 65, verse 13. Actually, I'm gonna read up some. Let me read up a couple. Read into it. This is Isaiah 65, verses verse 12. Therefore, I will number you to the sword. So going into that sword, which is a killing instrument, which goes into death. And ye shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, ye did not answer, and when I spake, ye did not hear, but did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not. So many people, because they were worshiping other idols, they were siding with Esau Edom and his philosophy and doctrines. They were pushing and trying to find their way in this world, not understanding that we're in a time in which the Lord is actually bringing forth great judgment. The Lord is now putting belt to ass. So now you're seeing people are going to start to see a lot of death, a lot of judgment that's happening upon the earth. And at some point in time, they're going to see, because at the same time, verse 13, it reads, therefore said the Lord power, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. So somebody is going to have to be the servant that's going to eat, and somebody's going to be out there famished and not having food. Okay. And when that happens, right, many of our people, like it tells us the scriptures, will be willing in the day of his power and the Lord's power. When they start to see these things happen, then many people are going to want to believe and want to come around, right? When they seen the miracles of Yahweh Shai, and he was feeding a multitude of people with the loaves of bread, and the fish, and Many people were coming, just to eat, right? When they see that there's salvation, and like I said, the Hawashai is that's his name. He saves, he delivers, but yet he's going to have sanctuaries, little like pockets of men in this world in which they're going to be those safe havens, right? But so then people are going to see those things, see that his men are eating, and that they're going to be hungry. And of course, the vast majority, as it tells us in many parts of the scriptures, that the vast majority will be women. It says, "Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit." Right? "And ye shall leave my name." So just to show you that there's going to be some that's going to be hungry, that's going to thirst, right? And then there's going to be the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and their families that are going to actually eat. And of course, when the women see these things, they're going to want to cleave on, to those men. And of course, many, let me see, see if I can get this pull up for me. This is the book of Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Let me read up a little bit. 15. And this is verse 11. It says, "Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence." So for her to even speak, she added confusion to the matter, by saying that he, implying that he was wrong for even considering, right? He says, "For Adam was first formed, then Eve," because again, it's going to come back to the righteous order of the man truly being the head and the woman being the helpmeet, and the Lord's going to put everything in its harmony. It says, "And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing, if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety." So the woman has a responsibility to, be quiet and just learn. All right. If she has a husband, especially this one that's in the truth, to learn quietly, to not usurp herself or to add confusion or heartache to a man of the Lord, but to learn from that man and be in subjection to that man, because she is his possession. And to also know, right, if she continue in the faith, just like the man, in charity and holiness, being set apart with sobriety, right, staying true to the one doctrine, right, not getting caught in all these different false doctrines, right, which would also be considered like wine, and being drunken, with these other ideas, right, but staying in sobriety, right. She should be saved in childbearing, because again, many women are going to be saved just for the purpose, of them bringing in the children, of Israel back into the land through a man of the Lord. And so that's a good position to be in, but you have to also have faith, charity, and holiness and sobriety. So I hope that this lesson was edifying, uplifting, exhorting of some sort to the elect body of true believers. Before I end, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Raha HaKadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. Until next time, all those listening and learning to you, I say, Shalom.